our species, let alone the rest?
I guess every single one of us, and many out there, have spent time in committee meetings and conferences and in talk shops, and you sit there after day and you think, what is this to do with the problem? I mean, how can we get something done? And leads you to suppose what Richard was saying earlier, you want an enlightened dictatorship to sort that out. I don't know how you do it, but I'm sure that one of the things that you have to do, which is where we all come in, is that you have to make sure that as far as possible, the electorates in democratic societies are aware of what the situation is, of what is at stake, of what the price is, and the sort of things that can be done. Because in our systems, it is politicians who eventually have to press the levers. And unless you get a politician who really believes that the electorate has a powerful view on this, he won't do anything.
Just to follow that up, David, critics have said, yes, of you personally, as it were, and you're familiar with the criticism. Yes, you've been the greatest communicator that we've ever had in the medium of television, conveying the wonder, the beauty, the extraordinary quality of species on Earth, and it's a fantastic gain. But you've shied away from carrying through that to what we've just been talking about, saying, "Oh, you mustn't preach." What is your own feeling about that now?
Well, I mean, in defence, let me say, I did 3 50-minute programmes precisely about this, called About the State of the Planet, in which we actually put that forward. And of course, every broadcasting organisation ought to be ventilating these issues. I would wish that we did more. But what we're talking about requires very big changes, and which will require people not just paying lip service, but really believing it is true and putting things behind it. Now, that means that they ought to be converted. They ought to actually think that the natural world is precious. And unless that is step one. If they don't think that, then they aren't going to make the sort of sacrifices that is necessary to be made. And that's why all of us in this festival are engaged in the business, I believe, because we get huge delight and pleasure out of seeing these things, and we believe they're precious, and others ought to see why that is so.
I don't watch a lot of television, but I do get the impression that there has been a great deal, and present company notwithstanding, a great deal of, spring follows winter and summer follows spring, and things get together and have babies and go on and get eaten. And there's a certain inevitability to a lot of the nature films that we see. And a lot of this suggests there are no people in the planet. And I wonder whether there couldn't be more attempt in some of the films, not all of the films, there's some great exception, to be slightly more contemporary and relevant to the crisis that we're talking about. And I think this would take some conscious thinking. I know that I've been criticised for being basically a political animal for most of my life. I am political, and I do believe politics has a place. It's very much part of being a primate. And the whole business of being a primate is to get other primates to do what you think is right. Particularly if you had silver hair, now it's gone completely. But you still want to push your point, and you have to be political. And I think conservationists have been too apolitical. We've been trying to be too pure. I think if you look at what has happened to the world in the last 15 years in terms of IT and the ability for ideas to rush through the world, good conservation points and good conservation ideas are not using those channels in the way they might be used. Now, how you get people to log on to learn those things, I don't know. But there clearly is a means of communication that far exceeds anything we've ever had in terms of film. And there must be a way that can be plugged into to make it exciting.
All those great numbers that turned up at Birmingham, Seattle and elsewhere to lobby, most of them extremely peacefully, some of them not, that wasn't because of mainstream media. That was entirely done on the internet.
That's what I'm saying.
That's exactly which is your point.
The internet is a tool that I think conservationists and wildlife policymakers are not using.
Jane?
Yeah.
The point was being made that the wonderful work that you originally did would now get lost in the maelstrom.
Which it would, probably. Yeah, well, we're working with youth. I come back to that because that is my hope for the future. And this program has really started to grow beyond any dreams I might have had. We're now in 87 countries. We have more than 7,500 active groups. They are using the internet crazily every day. They're sharing their thoughts about conservation, about the future of the world. Their future. It belongs to them. And we've messed it up. And, you know, this is why I began the program, because I felt so guilty when I look at my 3 little grandchildren and think what's damaged since I was their age. And that if we can't give youth hope, we may as well give up and pack up, because then there's no hope. And what's the use of my struggling to save chimpanzees, forests, ants, or anything else if we're not raising the next generation to be better stewards than we've been? So my passion is in this program.
We've been talking about